Noob School. All right, welcome back to Noob School. Today I've got a friend going back, I think maybe, what do you think, 20 years?
15.
15 years. 15 years, Brandon Chapin. Yeah. Brandon is a good friend, and I met him. I was driving down the road in Greenville one day, and I saw a little sign on this old building, and it said CrossFit.
Oh, yeah.
I pulled in.
I'll never forget.
You were in there, and we started chatting, and you just opened up a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. Right? You came in.
Credit card?
Yeah, you'll be like, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, if you know, we're familiar with Greenville, the condo they've built next to Publix.
Yes.
So the gym is still there, but it's hiding now.
Yeah, that's so right by the downtown Publix is where it was. And I brought my brother back. And we signed up.
And I remember I got really lucky. The person that owned that building was a fellow entrepreneur, and every other person thought I was crazy. And this guy, when I went to ask him about a building he had for lease, said, "Get in my car," and he took me there.
Wow. A
complete stranger.
Wow.
And he just kind of believed in me before I believed in myself, really.
Yeah. So one of the things, I like many things about you, but we obviously learned CrossFit from you and got in reasonable shape at your wonderful gym. And CrossFit gyms are funny, I think, because they tend to attract, something relative to the owner.
Oh, for sure.
So you have your own little posse of people. In our case, they were all interesting people that were so much fun. But you had come down here from Maine to go to Furman and run track, right?
Well, a kid I went to high school with that I ran track with went and ran at Clemson.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, you got to come down here.
Yeah.
So I came down, and I ended up going to Furman. And I didn't run in college competitively. I just was into exercising and studied health and exercise science. And it just was like, I was really into training and thought if I could be where I'm not in the winter, that would be like ideal.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, and when you're young, I was like totally like fixated on working in a gym.
Yeah.
Even in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was always kind of like part of my life was going to revolve around that.
Yeah. Well, one of the parts of the story today, the reason people might be interested is, a lot of times people will say something like, I want to have my own gym, but I don't have the money yet.
Yeah.
Or I can't afford it, or blah, blah, blah. That has all these reasons.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. People will say, I want this, but, and they figure out, they tell themselves why they can't do it. What Brandon didn't have the money for a gym. I know for a fact. What he did was he kept his job at Furman. He worked in the physical training facility, the PET, I think it's called. The PAC. And he ran that gym for Furman while he was at Furman, and then stayed on for a couple of years afterwards, right?
For a long time.
That way you got a paycheck and you had your benefits.
Yeah.
And on the side, you were at the gym at 5 a.m. at your gym, right?
Yeah.
And then after the Furman thing was over.
Yeah, so I think it was like from 3 to 11 at Furman.
Okay.
So I could have like 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, so you would work early in the morning until 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then for the afternoon session, I remember you had Michael.
Yeah.
Right? Michael and his wife would do the afternoon.
Yeah. I did that for years.
Yeah.
And I never really thought when I was doing CrossFit, it was kind of like proof of concept.
Yeah.
It wasn't like now where you tell someone you're going to open a group exercise gym and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I mean, I was met with, people would just laugh at my face.
Yeah.
Like when I worked at Furman, people felt obligated to tell me how I was going to kill people. And I, like you mentioned the people, and I was like kind of like really that wasn't my reality. As I was like, well, all these other people seem to be gravitating towards this.
Yeah.
And it was hard to explain how like that positive peer pressure is what I call it. Like how it just brings people kind of together.
Yeah.
That togetherness that was really revolutionary, I think.
And they were ambitious people.
Yeah.
They wanted to do well in the gym and, kind of what they were working on. But I just love the fact that you wanted to do something and you found a way to do it. Now, it required some extra work, right?
Yes.
I remember one time, this is a little embarrassing, but not embarrassing, maybe it's something to be proud of, but we were the first couple of customers.
Oh, yeah.
But you would get there at 5 every day for the 5:30 class, whatever it was. And I said, Brandon, how long you been here? He goes, since 5. And I said, well, did anyone come this morning? And you said, no one came this morning. And I said, well, what's it like, to be trying this hard and no one shows up? Because sometimes I'll just sit here and shed a tear, because it's rough, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I remember reading the E-Myth, and the first paragraph is about the baker.
Yeah.
And how you get convinced to do this thing and it doesn't work, or it's not working.
Yeah.
And I remember for sure sitting in the parking lot when no one showed up crying.
Yeah.
With it was like, I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, why?
And then I just remember one of my friends that kind of encouraged me to start the gym.
Yeah.
Told me that her parents immigrated to the U.S. not speaking English and were successful business owners.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking well, dang, that's I shouldn't quit yet. Right.
Right.
And also I think I was a little naive, which was probably good. I didn't really know what I got myself into.
Yeah.
I was just so, I guess, fixated on not working out alone, really.
Yeah.
It seemed like when you'd watch the videos on their website,
Yeah.
it just seemed like everyone was having fun.
Yeah.
And I always had fun doing high school sports, and I really missed that. And I was like, man, if we can just get it going, it'll kind of be in that kind of get the snowball down the hill.
Well, a couple things happened besides the fact that you were building a successful business. We all made a lot of new friends, including each other.
Oh, yeah.
And which, today, I haven't been to a CrossFit gym in a while, but some of those people I still hang out with, which is so cool.
Yeah, it was really amazing. People got married, and they're still getting married.
Yeah.
Your nephew is getting married from someone there.
Yeah.
And it's I think CrossFit can be insular and, to the outsiders it can be bad, but it's a lot of the times you think you got to find people that prioritize the same things as you.
Right.
And if you're around active, healthy people, I think that's just there's something really positive about that.
Yeah. I agree. And so as time went on, you eventually moved to a much larger, nicer, easier to park
I think
place over by
the baseball stadium.
Baseball stadium, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky that I had a lot of type A salespeople and entrepreneurs, people that were mostly in control of their own output, right?
Like Graham.
Yeah. People that were just that's what they liked about CrossFit, that you could kind of see the dopamine, people that like kind of working towards a goal. Mm-hmm. And I would talk, I was talking to my other friend that's a trainer, and he said, it is weird that people hire these business consultants and they pay all this money. And when you become a CrossFit coach, a lot of times those people come to you and they're paying you, and they kind of just give you some tips.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of great info, and I guess I just realized that we were going to, I saw real early on in Greenville that if we wanted to have a business, we had to probably own a physical space. Because at that time, I don't know if people remember, but people hated CrossFit because it was loud and they were playing metal, and it was just kind of different, right?
Yeah.
They thought a gym should be like an elliptical.
Yeah.
So I was really worried that we were going to get kicked out of everywhere we moved. And I guess I just really was able to hyper fixate on that one thing.
You were looking, right?
For years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure people that, there were realtors that I wasted their time for sure.
Uh-huh.
But they would let me look at these buildings, and back then it was still cheap and I couldn't afford it. But I got lucky, and kind of as CrossFit blew up, we started doing those events. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of accelerated kind of our savings. And it allowed us to...
Did you get paid for the events or just get more members because the events?
They would be open to... As CrossFit kind of blew up, I realized, like, oh, I can get money from people at all these other gyms.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got you.
And I designed these events for the community around, for people from the outside CrossFit gyms, and that really was like was definitely the most exciting thing, right? It was like kind of organized chaos.
Okay. So you found a way to get the other gyms to pay to come be in your events.
Yeah, and I guess that was kind of I was always like looking at the angles, right?
Yeah.
Like I kind of saw the future. I've always been really good at like seeing into the future and like recognizing patterns, which is, I think, a real disadvantage in school, because if you're like, a lot of entrepreneurs are ADHD, dyslexic.
Right.
But for me, owning a business, it always was a real advantage.
Right.
Because I could kind of see what people liked a lot better.
I think it's interesting what you just said there, because if you're like me and you, and you're, let's just say, not so good at the details or maybe following the rules or whatever, not only is that good to be an entrepreneur, it's also a disqualifier to be a good employee.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not what they want. You know, and so it was. You know, I lasted for a while in a pretty good sized business, but I was a part owner of the company.
Yeah.
And you know, my job was to bring in sales, so I kind of got a lot of like latitude.
Yeah.
But as a normal person, I wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes. I couldn't do an expense report. I didn't know how to dial, you know, a conference call number. I was just so lazy. Just, you know, no details.
I was not a great employee. I tried to be a pretty good employee because I couldn't get fired, but I was really lucky that I worked at night.
Yeah.
So I could kind of fly under the radar.
No manager.
Yeah, no manager after 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wasn't, you know, didn't have to do all the details. But I definitely didn't see the importance of all of the details either.
Right. It is interesting. You know, one of the things, did you ever do any like personnel profiling or psychological profile testing?
Yeah. I've done it. I can't remember a lot of it off my head.
Yeah. I think it's important. We were talking about it yesterday. You know, particularly people would do it earlier. I didn't do it until like a company asked me to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I kind of know ourselves better now, but what if we really knew that when we were 20? That we're not good at the details. We're never going to be. So don't worry about it.
I think for me, I had this learning disability, but I was like pretty smart.
Yeah.
And when people would challenge me and say, well, you can't go to college, I was like, well, let me show you, which I wish someone young would have pulled me aside and said, like, well, you don't need to prove anything to them because like they're not going to think about you ever again.
Yeah. Well, you think about, obviously we're not the first person to think of this, but to say, you know, an education equals you sit in a classroom quietly and listen to somebody talk, and you take notes and then try to guess what the answers are. And that's not really an education.
Yeah, that's not how I learn.
Yeah.
I think I'm like 20 years too old, like with YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like can captivate me.
That's it.
Like,
yeah.
And I feel like had I had that when I was younger, I think I could have figured out sooner a path to
how to find real estate, how to write a business plan, how to, you know.
I mean, I remember in the early days of CrossFit, I printed out an article that someone wrote on how to start an LLC.
Yeah, right.
Because the internet kind of didn't, like, the state government didn't really use the internet. So you had to mail stuff in, which was very challenging for me.
Well, okay, so we know that you ended up buying a beautiful building with a nice parking lot. And you had room for events there. You had kind of a back room, weight room, I remember. And you had an office.
Yeah, we like moved up.
Yeah.
We had shower, like real showers.
Did you live there?
No, I didn't have to live there. But I don't know. I've like said this. I've said this privately, but when I started the gym, that room upstairs, I was about a week away from living there.
Yeah.
And I didn't, like, again, the details, I wasn't really, like, that was not a concern of mine.
Yeah.
And then divine intervention. One of the teachers at Furman that I ran with at lunch was going on sabbatical, and he had a 15-year-old cat. And he was real worried about the cat moving with them to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I was entrusted their house and the cat for a year.
Nice.
For, I think it was like the utilities.
Yeah.
And that was in my budget.
Yeah, utilities.
So it was like $200 a month.
Yeah.
And then I got a roommate.
So it's 100
So
now.
it was, 100. And he was a grad student for the professor, so it all worked out. But a lot of people wonder about CrossFit. A lot of people lived at their gym.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a rite of passage.
Right. I was thinking that because it was really a nice place, a nice neighborhood.
Yeah. You could definitely live there. And I lived next door for a long time.
Right.
But it's that was kind of the way it was back in the day, which is kind of hard to imagine that the momentum of like people were willing to do that.
Right. Interesting. So at some point, I don't remember exactly why this happened, but at some point, I guess you had an offer or somebody wanted to buy you out and they bought the gym from you.
Yeah.
Did they buy the real estate too?
No. So I was running the gym.
Yeah.
And the person I was running it with, we kind of had, CrossFit was changing. And I kind of thought it should be simpler. And they kind of didn't see it the way I did. So we kind of, they were, the plan, right? They were going to run the gym, and I was going to take the event side and run with that. And I remember at the closing to do all the legal paperwork, the lawyer shook my hand, and he goes, "Well, I don't think we're supposed to be doing that right now because of COVID." And I said, "What's that?" And we signed the paperwork, and then that was the like lockdown. The Donald Trump got on the news.
Wow.
And I was like looking at flights to Costa Rica. And I was like, I don't think I should leave. So that was like a total like 180, like kind of the direction I was headed we didn't. So the event side of thing kind of fizzled out. But the gym's still there.
Yeah.
They just celebrated their 15th year anniversary, like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And then that gave me the opportunity to kind of reinvent myself.
And my nephew Daniel, does he still work there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I will drive by. My mother-in-law now lives next door, and I just see him in there. The lights, just the little dim light, and he's on the treadmill.
Just going.
Since he's been 10.
Yeah.
It reminds me of myself.
Yeah.
It's my favorite cathartic experience, right? Is that exercise.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to reinvent the Brandon.
Yeah.
You sold it, kept the real estate, so they're paying you for that.
Yep.
And what did you do next?
Wanted to try to like professionalize CrossFit, but it became impossible to buy gym equipment and have large groups of people. And I no longer had a building.
Yeah.
So that became kind of a crisis. But I'd always played with eBay. And I guess I would do it when I moved and do it, when I needed money in college.
Yeah.
And I kind of just went and tried to do that a little bit, and then just kind of got over, it kind of blew up. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh my God, this can't be this. It was too good to be true.
And you're finding or buying equipment, gym equipment, and then reselling it on eBay.
I kind of weirdly got into this other sub niche by meeting people, right? Of old clothes or vintage clothes.
Okay.
And that kind of became an obsession. Mainly as I've had different iterations of the eBay business, this is I've decided that clothes can fit into a much smaller space than most other things. So for the health of my business and my relationship with my wife, we have to keep it smaller than bigger if I'm going to do it at my house.
Yeah.
And that was, but I guess that was like one of those things where the way I viewed myself was like, I'm the CrossFit guy.
Yeah.
And I was at this estate sale, and this lady says, oh, I know you. And I was like, oh, from the gym? And she goes, no, from your Instagram page about clothes. And I was like, oh. It was kind of this weird shift.
Yeah.
And I guess that is like my new dopamine, like thrill seeking, is finding these old things that are.
So are you going to estate sales? Is that your main way to find them?
So it was.
Yeah.
And now it's a whole subset of the culture where young people, they're seeking this out as their first business.
Okay.
So I'm happy for them because they're willing to work much harder than I am at this point. Like, they're like me 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They'll sleep in their car
And wait.
Yeah. Whereas I'm a little older and can kind of move in different directions. But a lot of it now, since I'm older, is helping your friends when their parents move or die.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. And you can provide a service so that they know what to keep and what to sell. And it's just something I help people do because you can't keep everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you're doing, I know you have a warehouse near here.
Yeah.
Where you keep, I guess, a lot of your stuff that you find at various places, bring it in, sort it out.
Yeah.
And then put it on eBay and sell it.
It's a logistics company is the way I think about
Yeah.
it. So a lot of the time, like the old clothes ship to New York and LA and Japan, weirdly.
Yeah.
So you're shipping to the coast, like the kind of, like there's more money there.
Yeah.
There's hipper people.
Well, they love anything American.
Yeah.
So Levi's.
Oh, yeah. In Japan, they love LL Bean
Yeah.
and Patagonia.
Yeah.
There's weirdly a lot of those stores there.
Yeah.
So it's taught me a way. I guess I've always been really good with people and understanding what motivates people. It's kind of the way you have to be if you're in any sales job. But this has just helped me like truly shift that you can sell anything on the internet. And the internet really, I mean, you can niche down as far as you want and you have unlimited reach.
Yeah.
And that's like with CrossFit, you're limited by who's in geological proximity.
Yes.
And it was really easy for me to I'll be like, oh, I'm not doing as well as I could because all these people in the apartments aren't coming here. But with eBay and the internet, and
it's unbelievable.
It's and you get to some amazing stories from people that tell you that they've been looking this since they were a kid. It was in their mom's kitchen.
Yeah.
And things like that. So that's kind of interesting.
That's cool. So people in Japan would see your listing because they're trying to find some certain thing, like a KISS T-shirt or something.
Yeah.
And then they would say, what size is it? Or they would ask you questions and then you respond back.
Yeah.
And then, I guess you must know how to ship everything to Japan.
Yeah. So eBay makes it pretty easy. I mean, I guess it's easy for me.
Yeah.
But
so how does that work if you got to ship something to Japan? First of all, how do you get paid? Through eBay?
It's through eBay, yeah.
Okay.
And eBay is, what I tell people is, eBay is searchable by words and pictures. So you've got to describe it really. So the details is the hard, that's why I hate the listing of it. It's a lot of data entry.
Yeah.
Which for me is like my least favorite thing.
Right.
And then, for me, it's like the human game of memory. When you're out looking, you can see things, and weirdly, you'll start to recognize like the way that things feel and the way they look. And it's a lot of dopamine.
You get paid through eBay, and then to ship it, you put it in a bag.
Yeah, poly bags.
And then they give you a sticker.
Yeah.
And you just put that sticker on there.
And I have developed some rules because the post office can be a challenging experience.
Yeah.
So I have the post offices where you can fit a shoebox. I try to never go in and talk to people.
Okay.
Because I just found that it's better. A lot of people don't like their job. And I'm pretty happy, and sometimes I think people get resentful of that.
Right. So which ones do you go into? The big ones?
Oh, no, they have them on Lawrence Road and the main post office. You just have a little chute.
So you don't have to talk to people. You just put it in there. I got you. Yeah. Well, that's a good lesson. This is not what we're talking about today, but you're smart because, most people want to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to be happy. Why can't I be happy? Well, that's one way you can be happy is avoid people that will bring you down.
Yes.
And try to hang around with people like our old posse at CrossFit that will bring you up.
And that's, I think everyone says my wife is like a golden retriever. And she is in sales, right? And they think, and to me, it's like the yin to the yang, right? I have a tendency to be a little more cynical, but like at least I recognize that I need to be like, and I think that's a lot of why people, as I've gotten older and I see people that in their jobs that when I was 25, they weren't really envious of me, right? Because I was sleeping in my car, in between personal training clients. It wasn't that I was like, putting it in so that I could build up this capital of work. And now they're like, well, what do you do? And I was like, kind of like whatever I want. And also, if you're self-employed, you also have to have a lot of self-discipline and structure.
Right. Nobody's watching, but if you watch Netflix all day, it's going to catch up with you at some point, right?
Yeah, and I just have to do a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And you can't lose. It's like working out. You can't stop.
Yeah.
You have to do it. For me, I have to almost do it every day of the week.
Right. I do. I mean, my trick for that with same personality, and I've told many people this, is, put your have tos first.
Yeah.
Exercise, do all your listings done, all your shipping done, and just get it done as fast as possible. Maybe you're finished by 10.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, all the basics are taken care of. Now we'll see what happens today.
Yeah.
And that's because people tell me, well, I was going to do it yesterday afternoon, but I ran out of it. I'm like, of course you did. Nobody's got time in the afternoon. We got stuff going on.
That's the big shift. One thing I've gained through not working in the gym is a lot of empathy for everyone that I probably said that they were full of excuses. Now that my life's more complicated and involves a lot more moving pieces, I'm like, oh, I was kind of a dick.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy, and that's wisdom, right? But I remember when I was 30 even, my life was easy. Like, there was not, I worried about, like, the gym, and that was really it, and going to work.
Yeah.
And now there's, you got a lot of other people to consider every day.
Yeah. Well, you think about, let's say, a more complicated life. If we have things we want to do, like in your case, let's say we want to get all of our shipping done to Japan this afternoon. But like in my case, like if my dad called and said, "Hey, can you come over and help us with something?" Be like, "Of course. That's going to take priority every time. But if I do those important things like between 6 and 9 in the morning, no one's calling.
Yeah, that's
my time.
As I've not worked in gyms, that's basically, and getting a dog. If you get a dog that likes to walk in the morning, it's no longer a choice.
Yes, you got to.
They will let you know. So that's a life hack that I tell people can really just get you focused in the morning.
Yeah, you got to get up.
Yeah.
You got to go outside.
And it's really helped me become a morning person.
That's good.
I mean, not that I wasn't, but I choose to wake up now before the sun every day.
Yeah. And, also, in terms of happiness, it's certainly proven being outside is something you do to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Getting some sun is a good thing. And also seeing people.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie, that kind of thing versus inside.
Yeah, in my neighborhood, I'm with all the retired people, right?
They're getting the newspaper in the morning.
And they're walking.
Yeah.
And I used to think it was silly, right? I was like, it needs to be harder.
Uh-huh.
And now it's just it needs to be more consistent.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, the exercise. It's just
that business is going, and I know you have a real nice warehouse with all that stuff in it. In fact, I've actually gotten something from you on it. I think it was a backpack, maybe.
Oh yeah,
a backpack. So, but you have something new you've done because I know your wife is in the real estate business, and you've been doing some fixing up and.
Yeah, so I guess it's hard when you become your parents, right? So Kendall and I have always been into being busy.
Yeah.
So we bought, we'd buy a house, fix it up, sell it.
Yeah.
And then when she started doing more real estate, I started during COVID, it's going wild. And she's like, hey, I need someone to do this now. And I was like, okay, I can try, like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Let's pretend.
Yeah.
And it's kind of evolved into just we help with real estate closing repairs and people that have holes in their drywall.
Yeah.
We do a lot of fence repairs.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, has been a total shift in what I do, but it's basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about sales, it's following up, do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people they work in the trades, their school's not their thing.
Yeah.
They're not organized. And they're very much a hyperactive person. They need to be hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I am aware of that, but I also know that for me, that's the key.
Yeah.
Especially with real estate agents, is they need communication and to set schedules.
So you're doing closing readiness.
Yes.
And this is for Kendall and also, I assume, some of her colleagues at the office.
And I think what's maybe unique is I think that a lot of people don't the attention to the detail and what things look like and what's trash. That's the coach in me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm oh, well, you should move that chair just 6 inches this way. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of become my new creative outlet. Because CrossFit for me was I always viewed it as a human symphony. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, you get all these people moving together.
Yeah.
And with houses, it's that feng shui. Mm-hmm. I've kind of view it as an art rather than a science. You see all these HGTV shows, and I'm a believer that the cool little thing could be paints the picture of what the buyer wants.
Right.
And that's kind of the way, the creative side of me that I never realized that I had.
Right.
I just thought I was a meathead.
I never thought that. So you have had an interesting career. Once you made enough money really to leave Furman and be on your own, you've been fiercely committed to being on your own and not like having to work somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of your lifestyle.
Yeah, and like I was saying before we started, is I heard someone say that their goal was to be self-employed.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, for me, it's sometimes you're like, you're just killing it, and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." And then other times, it's what you were doing. Like eBay used to be really easy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I felt like it was so easy that I like couldn't even believe it. Mm-hmm. And now it's like 60% of what it was, right? Mm-hmm. So it's changed a lot. So that means that I have to kind of evolve. Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gone forever.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky that I've turned my hobbies into jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you've found opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And things that you can see yourself.
I think that's like kind of the new American dream.
Yeah, I agree. And, they talk about the safety of a job at a big company, and people are obviously learning that that's maybe not so safe at all, because you've got, multiple sources of income now. And if one of them starts to go away, you just work harder on the other one, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, my stepmother, mm-hmm. who has retired with a pension from the government, mm-hmm. is terrified about money.
Yeah.
And she sees me and gets nervous. And I said, well, I just stopped thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Like, I just always kind of have that abundance mindset that you can always help people. Yeah. And everyone's a little lonely, right? So... a lot of the times you can help, everyone can help people. And I think that like you said, that's that first step. I mean, when I was like super young and I had nothing to lose in my mind, mm-hmm. I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, I guess I can go back to this job, because you can always get a job.
Yeah.
So I kind of was fortunate in that regard that I was able to. I had a bad job, so it wasn't paying me a lot. So I kind of was forced, if I wanted to make a little more money, to kind of go for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Couple of quick ones here. What I know you like to read. What's your favorite all-time book?
I have favorite business book is Let My People Go Surf by Vaughn Chenard, which is about the founder of Patagonia. Mm-hmm. And then non-favorite book, like just as a kid, it was Into Thin Air by John Krakauer.
Yeah.
I was really into the outdoors growing up. It's about Mount Everest. Yeah. When I think it was like 20 people died in 1996.
Do you have any interest in doing Everest?
Well, my wife's family are adventurers. Uh-huh. That's their hobby. So I've adopted that hobby as an adult. And they've talked about going to base camp. Uh-huh. So that's on the list.
How about favorite band?
Favorite band? I've been really into this internet rapper.
Okay.
His name is Mike Period. And he's kind of like this independent artist.
Okay.
And I guess I admire him because I kind of like his music, and he's 100% his own everything. Mm-hmm. So he's not super popular, but he keeps 100% of what he makes.
So he doesn't have all the whole posse and stuff supporting him.
Yeah.
What about favorite word?
Oh, penultimate.
Penultimate. All right.
We use that a lot in coaching. The one before the last.
The one before the last. That's like for reps.
Yeah, if you the fourth set out of 5 is the hardest, right?
Okay. Because fifth one, you're finished.
Yeah.
Okay. Penultimate. All right. And then, what would you like to promote today?
I just would tell people the GVL BZR on Instagram.
GVL
BZR. So Greenville Bazaar.
GVL BZR.
Yeah, that's our vintage clothes antiques page. And we sell on our eBay store. And we go to local events. My friend actually from Furman started these clothing events,
Yeah.
and they're like the new flea markets for secondhand clothes.
Okay.
The hyped experience markets, I sell there a lot
Okay.
at near Home Team Barbecue.
Okay.
And then, yeah, if you have any home repairs, we love to help people.
You know, at GVL BZR, you can
Yeah,
find
you
you
can
there?
send me a message,
Okay.
and I can send you the link to we have a little form you can fill out.
I'll be on the lookout.
Okay.
That'll be fun. Well, fascinating life you've led so far.
Yeah.
Maybe you come back in a year or so and give us the
Oh, yeah.
update, you know, because it's crazy, all the crazy stuff you're doing.
Oh, yeah. It's been awesome. And thanks for all your support.
Well,
It was,
nothing like an early customer.
oh, yeah. This is the best.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Okay.